We're now going to move on to our next session. It's a regional session. It's Activating Latin America's Sustainable Green Recovery. And it will be moderated by Alejandra Salazar, who's the Senior Manager, Renewable Energy. And we're going to hand over to them. It's going to be about an hour, and then we'll be back here at 15 minutes past the hour after that 1 hour session. Again, thank you everyone for being with us, remaining with us, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy the next session looking at one of our regional agendas, so important to the way in which we at the WEC think about the way in which energy needs to be thought through. Thank you very much indeed.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alejandra Salazar, and today I am going to moderate this session. Our session today is Activating Latin America's Sustainable Green Recovery. And today we have three referents in the energy sector in our panel. And it's a pleasure to me to introduce Guadalupe Gonzalez, Director of Electricity, Secretary of Energy, Panama, Maurizio Bezzeccheri, Head of Latin America Region, Enel Green Power, Enel Group, and Claudio Seebach, Executive Chairman, Association of Power Generators, Chile. Our purpose today is go to in a deepening understanding of what Latin America looks like in a sustainable green recovery among some areas like energy efficiency, clean energy, including all the hydrogen, new technologies, replacing some fossil fuels consumption in order to develop a more efficiency, resilient and inclusive infrastructure. I would like to also to mention about what is the work in the World Energy Council and is doing related to several topics, but I will be delighted to mention that I've been working in a group of scenarios and trilemma energy, like that is energy security, energy efficiency, and also sustainable environmental. For that, we want to go into a deeply conversation with all our panelists in order to understand what is happening after post-COVID and what is gonna looks like energy. So I would like to introduce first to our fantastic panelist, Claudio Seebach, in order to start their presentation.
Thank you very much, Alejandra. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to be sharing the floor with Guadalupe and Maurizio. And I'd like to present briefly on how we see and the lessons from Chile and how we can connect a sustainable recovery with the resilient and carbon neutral future we are all pledging. In Chile, we've gone through three crises. Recently in October, we had a major social crisis. We're, of course, just like everyone else, going through a crisis of the current pandemic, but then we're all going ahead to the big crisis, which is the climate urgency. Some people say that COVID-19 is a preliminary round for the actual crisis that is waiting for us out in the ring, which is climate change. But if you look at the local aspects of Chile, and those of you who've been to Santiago and to our cities, is that air pollution is by far still the biggest problem and the local environmental hazard. Most of our population, especially in Santiago and south of Chile, live exposed to higher pollution levels than the national air quality standards. And that presents an issue that we have more than 4,000 premature deaths per year. And especially that comes from the fact that still 20% of our energy supply in Chile is still wood, biomass. And 86% of this is, of course, goes into the air as fine particulate matter that goes in the bloodstream and creates those premature deaths. And this is mainly related to the fact that just Chile, like many other countries in Latin America and the world, still are related to energy poverty. Poor heating, bad housing insulation, 34% of urban households in Chile do not have an equitable access to quality energy services. 66% of houses, which is the housing stock, which is 40 years old, don't have energy efficiency performance standards. And finally, this of course has a direct effect of how people live in their daily life within their homes, especially now during the pandemic. most of the Chilean cities are in a more colder region. In Chilean winter, families live on an average of, poor families particularly, live in an average of 6.5 degrees Celsius below a comfort temperature. And this affects especially women. We've seen how the pandemic has particularly offended with a gender bias, women that have to stay at home, taking care of children, which is still, we have gone way back in affecting more women in this aspect. So this is kind of the local current issue we see. And what's about a more global perspective? Almost 20 years ago, The Economist was saying we are soon by the end of the oil age. But only last year, we finally found out that we have a crude awakening in terms of oil is still by far the biggest player and is the biggest actor in the global emissions on climate change, and also in the case of Chile, the largest share by far of the total energy demand. And this in the world is the same. 85% of the world's energy supply are still fossil fuels. In Chile, the case, because of biomass, it's 74%. But anyways, oil, coal, and natural gas are the dominant energy sources. And if you look at the final consumption, almost 60% of final consumption are oil products. 30% is diesel. And if we compare that, quite often we have a lot of discussion about electricity, but electricity is much less, despite the fact that we are fully dependent on electricity. In the case of Chile, only 22% of final energy is electricity. But Latin America and Chile are rich in renewable resources. 44% of all electricity last year was renewable, and we're going directly into a renewable future in the case of Chile. And I have pleasure to have Enel here, one of the leaders, of course, in the energy renewable transition revolution. In almost 10 years, we seek to have 85% already of renewables. And by the first time ever, we will see that the sun will become the #1 source of energy by the end of the decade. So if we have a country which is attractive for investment, why? Because Chile has been open to foreign investment, we have competitive markets, we have regulatory quality, and that's behind the fact that we can think of competing and keeping track on a sustainable recovery. Almost all the plants in Chile that are developed currently are renewable. So if we have renewables, and lots of them, we can also think of how we can shift out of fossil fuels. And that's the reason why we see that last year we had a voluntary agreement to the phasing out of coal. That's the first agreement in an emerging economy. We're going to shut down by 2040, 10 years before the carbon neutrality deadline, all power plants powered by coal. And that's the way. And what will be the drivers behind that? We'll need more having transmission capacity, storage, grid flexibility, all those issues we've been discussing in other of these seminars in the World Energy Council. So if we have a big issue, like a local issue, like pollution, but we have a chance of electricity and renewables, the question is, and just as the final thought, how can we seize the moment and take this 21st power that is clean energy and put it to serve the social issues, the economic recovery, and of course the pandemic? And that's a good look if we take the SDG 7, which thinks of 3 aspects. Affordable and clean energy means global emissions, means local emissions, and means to address equitable access to energy and energy poverty. And that means, and first of all, is to align us with a target of 1.5 degrees. Carbon neutrality is a must by 2050. And to achieve carbon neutrality, we have to think of many initiatives in energy, but also in the case of Chile, to keep our forests well and alive. And in the first 10 years, it's the power sector that is decarbonizing the fastest. The question is what will happen in the next decade, and where transport, buildings, and mining will be key. So the thought is, if we have renewable electricity and we have a large share of fossil fuel demand, electrify everything as much as you can. And this is probably the largest lever we have to tackle both greenhouse gas emissions, the urban air pollution, have better energy efficiency, and reduce energy poverty. And there are finally 2 examples. What can be done in Latin America? Housing, insulation, and heat sources will be dramatically needed to be improved. And that will have a direct effect on energy equity. If the poorest houses are living the worst standards, we should focus in improving household thermal insulation efficiency, which will also create a lot of jobs for lots of people. And on the other hand, we have to change the heat sources. If biomass and wood is still the #1 source creating pollution, we will have to switch to cleaner sources. That's one example for a sustainable recovery. And the other one, of course, is that we need to electrify those transports that are intensive in energy use, like public transport, which have, again, a large social impact, an equity impact, an environmental impact. And it's good business to electrify a public transport. And Enel, in the case of Chile, has been leading the transport revolution in the city of Santiago, the city out of China, which, as far as I know, has the largest amount of buses. So the final question about a sustainable recovery, this is how can we align the actions that promote, of course, urgent creation of jobs and investment, which is what we need now because of the pandemic, with those that are the environmental, current local issues, and of course the climate strategy towards carbon neutrality, climate resilience, tackling this urban pollution, and finally the reduction of poverty. That, in our perspective, is what we can frame as a sustainable recovery. And that, I think, from the lessons from Chile, something that it could inspire Latin America and, in fact, the world. And to transform Chile and other countries in a solar Saudi Arabia. So that would be my first thoughts and views on how can we have a sustainable activated economy and resilient and sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio. Really, really interesting. In fact, to give us all the perspective in local and global as well, and how to addressable, equitable for local energies as well, and also the two key factors that you mentioned at the end about housing insulation improvement through energy equity, and at the end, how to move forward with mobility as well and transport, how to revolution transport. I would like to introduce now to Maurizio Bezzeccheri to start his presentation, please.
What we are here presenting is Enel in Latin America, is some number, but in general, Enel is a multinational energy company and one of the world leading integrated electricity and gas operators. In Latin America, Enel is present in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Panama, and Peru. And we operate over there around 23.5 gigawatt of generation, of which over 16 gigawatt from renewables. In the distribution sector, the group manages over 556,000 of square kilometers across 8 concession areas, bringing 137 terawatt hours of electricity to 27.4 million of end users, including those located in the mega cities of Bogotá, Buenos Aires, Lima, Rio de Janeiro, Santiago, and Sao Paulo. For years, our task was to connect people to electricity in order to satisfy our clients' basic needs. Today, however, we are living in a new era that has brought with it a change of paradigm in the way we do and understand things. We want to open up energy to more people, new technologies, new way of consumer to manage energy, new uses of energy, and more employees and contractors. A task we will be seeking to achieve through our value, responsibility, innovation, trust, and productivity. This ambitious goal, and we are pursuing them with the passion of more than 20,000 people who want to change the world in Latin America. Next chart, please. As Enel Group in LATAM, we operate in a challenging context, in a region as Latin America, which is constantly changing. Moreover, there are other challenges that we are facing, challenges that are becoming more evident with this pandemic. In fact, coronavirus in this framework acts as an accelerator of the transition that was already in place and that we have been already promoting and advancing. These challenges are carried out in a peculiar context, such as Latin America, a context marked by decarbonization pressure, as we see in the presentation of Claudio, pressure from investor for ESG investment, and urbanization. The 80% of the population already lives in large city. Our main challenging: energy transition, talent management and growth plan, trade union and institutional relationship, and regulatory framework. Next chart, please. Today, energy poverty is considered to be one of the most important challenges of the global energy agenda, since access to safe and continuous energy condition human developments, both at a social and at an economic level. In order to increase access and improve energy supply in homes in the country where we operate, progress has taken place in defining and closing existing gaps, as well as progressing in energy sustainability. Enel in LATAM is committed to develop virtuous projects in order to support local community and contribute to United Nations SDG goals. Only in the first half of 2020, we have more than 1 million beneficiaries of our initiative, and we developed more than 500 projects in this sense. During the pandemic, for example, we activate several projects in order to help local community, for example, health project, socio-economic project as well, like donation of basic food basket, use of a daycare center, manufacturing of hand mask for people. Due to the informality in the job in Latin America, we keep maintain in that activity as well in the local community. Next slide, please. The results achieved in recent years prove the solidity and sustainability of our business model, which is capable of creating value for all shareholders and stakeholders and contributing to achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In this context, Enel in LATAM presents a comprehensive business strategy, which is able to achieve all of these objectives, to bring the energy transition to the region, offering development solution in balance with the environmental and communities, and therefore sustainable in time. For us, sustainability is equal to value. We have put into action a unique system for managing sustainability process. Solid facts and data reflects our daily commitment to protecting the environmental relationship with the local community, individuals' motivation, relationship with client, investment in innovation, information and communication technology, and the development of clean energy. ESG rating agencies and the international analysts continually monitor our sustainability performance, selecting the group and main company in the most important international sustainability index. Next chart, please. Just to say that I was born professionally as a chemical engineer, and I was working in an engineering company, working for refinery plant, a petrochemical plant, and my skills was related to designing of steam reforming for hydrogen production. Then I see along the time in the last part of the 80s and in the first part of the 90s, the topics of smart of fuel cell, but later on we have not seen a huge application of this technology up to now. And in more or less 20 years ago, Jeremy Rifkin's published just a book that was Hydrogen Economy, the worldwide web energy web creation. But since this definition of the concept, not too much things happen meanwhile. What is our view regarding hydrogen? We think that hydrogen can be an important fuel in the future economy, but needs to be produced through renewable energy. That means we believe in the green hydrogen path. And even more, we believe that the hydrogen needs to be over the fence. That means on the burden of final user, because it's more safe, the transportation of electricity, green electricity, than transport hydrogen. This is our general view regarding hydrogen. Next slide, please. Migration to large cities is a global trend. According to United Nations, the world average concentration of the population in urban areas will rise from 55% in 2018 to 68% in 2050. However, in Latin America and the Caribbean, that figure is already much higher, urban population reaching 81% according to the same United Nations report. The scenario presents a challenge for the energy market. The growth of a renewable power generation project has been only on one first step toward a new paradigm that is already underway. Cities based upon the efficient use of energy by means of digitalization and automation processes in new uses for energy, such as electric transportation, as mentioned, or electric air conditioning system. 30 years ago, the area now known as Silicon Valley of Sao Paulo was just a rural and forgotten area of the city, with limited opportunities for growth. This is the township of Villa Olympia, recognized as one of the Brazil's foremost financial center, and zone selected for developing an innovative electric network digitalization venture. In October 2019, the Enel Group revealed its urban futurability, 5,000 sensors, several technology in terms of digitalization and artificial intelligence have been applied in this area for a three-dimensional digital infrastructure model. The project acts as a laboratory to test technology that could be implemented in the distribution network throughout the concession area, since it implies the creation of an open and shared urban ecosystem in which energy becomes a service. Urban Futurabilities, this is the name of the project, is the key to achieving progress of SDG 9, that means Industry, Innovation and Infrastructure, and SDG 7, Affordable and Clean Energy. Next chart, please. Enel is the Enel Group Advanced Energy Services business line. At Enel LATAM, our aim is to offer everyone, everywhere, the opportunity to create new value through the innovative use of energy. It will enable people to collaborate, explore, exchange in the new energy sector economy. See, I am, yeah, but let's say these kind of business are aimed at transforming business, transforming city, transforming homes, and transforming transport. If we go to the next chart, Claudio already mentioned the success of the 435 electric buses circulating in Santiago. Now we are building electric terminals for these buses. We are doing the same in Colombia, and we are facing a new increase in terms of electric buses in Colombia and Chile as well. On the other hand, we have already installed private charger along way the Pan American areas. And finally, on the next chart and final chart is the chart regarding renewable energy. Renewable energy, as you can see here, is one of the core business we went ahead. In terms of number, we have already 5 gigawatt in terms of new approved capacity that will come into operation between 2020 and 2022. And we have a pipeline of 18.4 gigawatt that will be built in the next year. So our presence is already a presence of leading player in this sector. Sorry.
Don't worry at all. Thank you very much. Those final figures and numbers are very, very interesting. And thank you for sure for all the private sector perspective. I mean, Enel Group is for sure one of the key players in order to move forward with the energy transition. And also, thank you very much for all what you mentioned in terms of new ways of consumption and new ways of uses of energy. And you mentioned as well of hydrogen and about how to progress in energy during all this period under COVID-19 as well. And thank you very much as well for the last one of you said about mentioning that Enel Group is committed with the Sustainable Development Goals with the United Nations as well. Very interesting. I would like to introduce right now our fantastic panelist, Guadalupe. Please, Guadalupe Gonzalez, if you want to start your presentation.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. And I appreciate WEC's invitation to participate and give our perspective from the government side regarding the activations of Latin America on sustainable green recovery. Next, please. Yeah, well, first of all, of course, the COVID-19 effects have been felt all over the world and in Latin America as well. We have been very impacted in Panama as well and in the rest of Central America. We've seen numbers that have been processed by many institutions. I just bring here a report that was made by OLADE at the beginning of the year, where they studied the impacts of COVID-19 in the region and in Latin America. I bring the numbers, and of course we have seen how the energy consumption has changed because of the sanitary measures that were taken by some of the countries. Also, we've seen how in parallel about our ways of consuming energy and of ways of living has changed during these pandemic times. The CO2 emissions has also changed regarding these aspects. So with this, we have seen that even though we are looking into a black time, because 2020 have been a very black year for all of us, that we have lost families due to COVID, or that we have been losing jobs because many of our Panamanians fellows have been having a very dark time. Anyhow, we are looking into positive aspects, and this is that the government has been tightening their forces around the region, and we've been thinking in positive. Next slide, please. And this is not only in Central America, but in the entire world. We have seen that all over the world, the governments has taken like an approach to actually do changes on not only on because of COVID-19, but also as the economies has been affected so deeply. In some countries, we have seen numbers of people losing their jobs that might go up to 20%, 30%, 40%. Now we have to look for other ways to reestablish the economies. And one way actually is going green, and is actually putting ahead the energy sector in most of our countries. The opportunities are ahead. the opportunities are now due to the changes that already we were seeing because of the new technologies, renewable technologies, digital technologies that have been emerging in the scientific aspect, and now even more are cost effective and can go into the markets and into our households. So now is the opportunity to take to balance the options. Do we recover our countries, the economies, following paths that we used in the past, or we change our ways and actually try to use this opportunity to do real changes in other aspects, like trying to actually do the best for our environment? We have been hearing in the past years that the problem that is climate change, we are aware of that, that is already proven, but we kind of were needing something as devastating as this, maybe, to actually put everything in order and make us, as the government levels, as the policy makers, like to actually think in this way and take action. Next, please. So regarding this, we have seen in many government stakeholders, and talking also with the private sector, in ways to actually do changes that are felt in the short and medium term. And one of the ways for sure is in the energy sector, but the energy sector is very well related to the climate sector. So for example, I bring this, I found it a platform for Redesign 2020 that actually looking forward. And here there are a lot of regional countries that are actually sharing with the rest of the world what are the actions that they are taking into account in order to redesign their countries. I found in this platform, for example, is Mexico, is Costa Rica, is Chile, Panama, Peru, and all of them have their own measures, but actually they all have the same things in common, and is that we have to use this opportunity to introduce new technologies, to introduce new business markets due to or based on technology, based on energy. Because the energy sector is one of the sectors that can impact majorly in the climate changes that we need to introduce. Next, please. I will focus a little bit on what we are doing in Panama, just as an example, because we understood this problem of climate change following the same path that already Chile has been making, that also Colombia, Mexico, and other countries near Panama are already making in terms of energy transition. We understood this, and maybe the COVID-19 was like the final step to actually pushing us to do something even more aggressive regarding this. And we published for comments of the population the basis of the energy transition agenda of Panama. With this, actually, we are proposing to the Panamanian public 5 strategies for the energy sector, for the electric sector, and 2 for the hydrocarbon sector. In total, there are 7 strategies for the energy sector in Panama. We are basing these strategies on the sustainable objectives of UNESCO. We are trying to produce energy that is accessible, that is secure, that is sustainable, that is reliable, so that we are, trying to plan our energy system for the next 10 years, but with these aspects in mind. Panama uses more of the energy from fossil fuels for the transportation sector. But now with, for example, electric mobility, as Chile and Maurizio, Claudio and Maurizio mentioned, electric transportation has been focused for us. Not only based on vehicles or the public transportation, but also taking into consideration that we may have to make it sustainable. We don't want to change 1 million of vehicles that already are transiting in our streets from using fossil fuels with electricity, because that is not sustainable. We want to make changes, for example, introducing railways, introducing other type of mobility that complement the electric vehicles in this sustainable aspect. So we are working in a strategy on this, but it's not only the government that is making opinions regarding how we have to move, for instance, in electric mobility. We are creating, or we already created, a commission that involves the public sector, involve private companies, and involve the academia. Because for us, it is very important that these type of strategies are made in an integral way. We need to know what every one of these stakeholders thinks that needs to be moving forward in order to actually make an impact. And we're not only talking about in 10 years. We are working right now. We have sessions every week, 4 and 5 times per week, actually finding what are the limitations or the barriers that are causing a problem right now, and trying to find its solution in a short period of time, 1 year, 2 years, so that in this time frame, the market can start moving forward, so that in 10 years we have our goals already met. This is what is the energy transition agenda for us. We want to set goals, we want to have measurables, we want to have projects that can tell us year by year what we are doing and how we are doing it, so that we can make changes if we want to. It's not only based on policy per se, but also in actual projects. And this has been, we have making the same philosophy. We are implementing it in the other strategies that we are presenting. And as Claudio says, we are also making an effort for finally close our energy barriers in Panama. We have 93,000 people that still doesn't have electricity, so that we are doing an energy strategy so that we can close that gap. We are also working on energy efficiency. We are also working on distributed generation, on the innovation of the bulk power system. Why? Because all of them together need to be worked in an integral way, so that we can find the best of all the technologies, of all the business schemes, and all the policy strategies that we have been making. So this is why I brought this, or maybe I just put this into an example, because we in Panama believe that working together right now is the best way to move forward. Next.
Thank you very much, Guadalupe.
Yes, I'm already practically done. This is my last slide. And I just wanted to bring the tools that World Energy Council provide and bring us to all this planification that we have been making in Panama. We have been using the energy trilemma. We have been using the issues monitor, because it's based on the opinion of our leaders of the energy sector, of the academia and the government, that we are actually making the changes that we need to see in the short future. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hope that this kind of spaces can bring us even closer together and make positive changes for our world in terms of climate change.
Thank you very much, Guadalupe. Really interesting. In fact, just we are going to pass to the section of the questions, but I want to say thank you about your perspective of all the ways to restart the recovery, and to mention all the 5 strategies from electrical sector related to sustainable recovery in terms of be reliable and be accessible with energy, and also how this is an opportunity to face real changes. And saying that, I want to just go to this first question to you, that from your point of view, what do you think, what are the incentives or what are the support formulas that should governments can exercise in order to increase rural electrification and also distributed generation that you mentioned before? Related also with all what you mentioned in terms of trilemma in energy equity, in sustainable environment, and energy safety as well.
Yeah, actually, I believe that from the government perspective, what we have to do is actually to facilitate the market to grow. For sure, it needs to be made based on scientific data. We need to make studies, we need to make research, so that we have the tools in order to actually make changes that are possible. And we don't, as government, we need to be also very stable on our decisions. If we want to move in one area, for sure we can be monitoring the technologies and the changes that have been made, because for us, the technology changes very rapidly, as in the telecommunications once happened. Now it's happening to the energy sector. We need to be vigilante on the changes of technology so that we can take also very good decisions in terms of policy making, and also being very stable with this policy making, so that the business sector can also have a security on what are how they invest their funds, basically, because you have to be very stable. At the end, that's what I believe it's important. And also working with the regulator so that the business aspects can be well done, introduced, and in the rural spaces also it's very important to have communication with the communities. So that's why it's very important, the trilemma, because the trilemma involves the social aspect with the technical aspect with the policy aspect at the end. So, and you need to have those 3 aspects very strengthened if you want a change to occur.
For sure. Thank you very much for this answer. I think that, yeah, it's fair now. You have all the right on saying about mixing all trilemma of the World Energy Council, and what is the perspective of your regional opinion on that. And for sure, I completely agree with that. And I am going to go next with Claudio, and I would like to, as Claudio gave us as well a global and a local perspective of a sustainable recovery, I want to ask you in terms of how does a sustainable recovery converge with an economy recovery in the face of this crisis and the magnitude, of course, we are facing with COVID-19 from your perspective. Yeah, of course, in terms also recovery focuses on all their economies and directly variables that we should have, like such an employment or growth or consumption?
Well, first of all, these two should not be contradictory. So as the question says, how can we make that they converge, and they should converge? In the first sense, of course, we will need urgent creations in job and investment. But just as Mauricio's presentation showed, there is plenty of room and there is intensive investment being done in Latin America, opportunities in growth in renewables, in growth in electrification of transport, in the growth of hydrogen. All those are both economic recovery, but at the same time, sustainable recovery. So sustainability is at the core of the way we should think the recovery should be done. So that's the way to converge. And on the other hand, if we think of Guadalupe and the government action, the recovery will be a big Keynesian stimulus. So if Keynes say we was traditionally dig a hole and fill it in, what we need to do is think of a green stimulus, which means dig a hole, plant a tree, and fill it in a way that the efforts run by government, which will be a lot of public spending, a lot of public money going out into channeled into the investments, need to be thought of. How can we reduce social issues? How can we address equity? How can we address in a gender equity approach, thinking of how much women have lost in this pandemic and how jobs creation need to have a gender approach. So it is possible, and as I tried to show in the Chilean case, if we think of housing insulation, that creates a better benefit for homes and people, how the way they live, but it also creates employment and creates jobs. So in my opinion and our opinion, it's absolutely feasible and necessary.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. In fact, I just want to mention again what you said before. I think that one of the challenge that we are facing, and how can we recovery maybe quickly, and how to include all the part of gender equity and gender gap, as we have our fantastic representation of gender here with Guadalupe. I think that it's going to be create a better future. And I would like to mention as well how World Energy Council is doing and supporting that as well, with some programs of women in energy here locally in Chile. And also I hope that it's going to be spread around all the region as well. Thank you very much for that. And I would like to go to the other questions to Maurizio. And Maurizio, from your point of view, from the private sector, what are the main perspectives in terms of innovation and technology that can act as road drivers for the region? Maurizio, I'm so sorry, you are off your microphone.
No, because this was managed by the Guion. So, as Guadalupe said, innovation and technology are the main pillars of the energy transition, accelerating the development of sustainable energies and technology paired with increased electrification of end uses would provide LATAM with a wider strategy to address inequality, energy access, security, and the decarbonization of the economy, as Claudio said as well. For us at Enel Group, as we said before, three main pillars: electrification, decentralization, and digitalization. The energy transition is the industry response in the push toward a carbon neutral, sustainable economy through the use of renewable energy, as we said, that reduce greenhouse gas emission, as well as energy efficiency. Transformation of the energy sector is leading to the development of a new sustainable business model. Thanks also to the growing digitalization of services and infrastructure. We acted some time ago to move forward a platform-based model since some years. For us, access to the energy is an enable for a whole series of activity, which this is why we are committed to a whole series of complementary energy services. We provide a wide range of solutions that everyone can use to transform energy into a service. Connection that take different form: distribution system and energy storage, smart lighting, electric mobility, as we have seen, instrument for smart energy and equipment management in homes, etc. Finally, innovation and digitalization have been our best allies during the COVID emergency, and we firmly believe that this type of approach is key to manage the process of tomorrow as well. And we believe that three main actions must be pushed. Making clean and affordable electricity the mainstream of energy. Boosting sustainable and digital infrastructure development, and making electricity the energy vector of the future, that thus transforming mobility and lifestyles.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. You are completely right with this in terms of how it's going to mix all the part of innovation and digitalization, and in fact, centralization as well of all the sustainable recovery, how we are going to spread this. And in terms of how you mentioned smart light and smart energy and electromobility, and as you include in your presentation, hydrogen, that is the final key of all the energy transition, I guess, in the next 30 years. I would like to go right now to a question, one question more for Guadalupe. As you mentioned, Guadalupe, about the trilemma, and we right now in the World Energy Council, besides trilemma, we are working in a COVID scenarios study that are the most recurrent scenarios. One of them is the fast forward, which involves all the international cooperation foreign investment and collaborate work between countries. So from your point of view, what does the public sector expect the private sector to do? And how do you believe that that can the private sector contribute to this challenge?
Yeah, as I was telling before, I think this is a teamwork at the end. We need to work together in order to provide something good, acceptable, and affordable to our final users, because at the end, we are working for them. We want them to find that the energy sector is providing the energy the best way possible, but also the paradigm is changing a little bit right now, because due to all the technologies that is introducing, and as I said, for instance, for Panama, we have 4 of the 5 strategies that we are presenting for the electric sector is focused on the energy users. Now they are changing just to be a consumer, now to being a prosumer. This is a concept that is now very well known. People are talking about it even more. So now we are gonna be like introducing a new type of task to the final user, but actually they are willing to do it. But we need to have all the technical aspects very well defined. And now this is another opportunity for the private sector to evolve and to grow. Actually, we see a lot of new employments that can be produced due to these new technologies that are going to be introduced into the final user way of living. Now we are talking about electric vehicles, we are talking about distributed generation, we are talking about a lot of different aspects that are not common for them, that we need to start to evolve so that the energy transition can really happen. And this also introduced the aspect of education that we have not talked until this moment. And we need to enforce a culture of energy into our people everywhere, because it is important that they find value into what they have. Energy is not only that you go to the switch and click it and that's it. Energy is much more than that. And we need so that everybody can know about this and the value about energy. And not only on the technology aspect, but also about the information. This is another opportunity for business that is just in the door to be explored. So there's a lot of things that we can do, but at the end it's a teamwork. We need to work together, government, academia, and the private sector.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Guadalupe. You're really right. It's teamwork, and also how private sector include as well all the part of distributed generation that in fact they are doing, but how spread regionally with that, and with as well with rural electrification. My next question is goes for Claudio. And Claudio, could you share with us some examples of good practices or actions that we should take in our sector that point of the purpose of this green recovery, what we are speaking, and with focus on greatest benefits and well-being of all the people.
Of course, and in fact, what I'd like to is maybe go over again of something I presented at the beginning. If we think of aligning recovery, economic jobs creation and investment with environmental issues and of course the long-term climate issue, and particularly now in the pandemic, every one of us, or most of the people, have had to stay at home. And in the case of Chile, at least, houses, and in fact, the whole buildings, is the second largest energy consumer after transport. So what can we do in housing and increases enormously the benefits of how we live in a house? In fact, a house, 55% of the energy a house consumes is heating. So in the case of Chile, at least. And if we can do something in the short term in increasing the energy efficiency of houses, and if we can change the household heat sources, we can do an enormous impact in both the energy bill of people, especially if we think of more vulnerable people have used worse energy, so they usually spend more in bad quality energy. So if we increase the energy efficiency, we consume less energy, we pollute less, and we create a direct social equity impact. Doing this, both insulation and changing the heat sources, creates jobs, especially creates small business jobs. There's an enormous amount of opportunity and technology of introducing heat pumps, which are more energy efficient than using regular, simple heat sources like based on biomass. That's one big example. The other one, of course, and Maurizio also mentioned it, is transport, and the largest energy consumer in our society. And today, transport is 98% based on fossil fuels. So if we can think of where should we start in transport? We should start in those uses that are more intensive at energy use. That means they're permanently used and that have the largest social impact. And that, of course, is public transport. Public transport, buses today, again, is an economic opportunity because buying a diesel bus might be a little bit cheaper, but I haven't met yet a clean diesel bus yet. And electric buses might be more expensive in capital expenses, but they're so much cheaper in operation and of course maintenance, and what to say in the environmental impact. And so again, you have something where you create something which creates equity, which creates investment, and which creates a recovery, which is directly aligned in this case with a Keynesian impulse. When you think of government, where should government renew a fleet of buses or at least promote it? It should be done like that. Those are two examples on how we can align this recovery with sustainability and creation of jobs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Claudio. It's a really, really good answer about this question. In fact, how to do with these two factors, well, energy efficient houses and all, how to go through all the transport and go more in the part of facing the social impact, right, with public transportation and create, as you mentioned, the equity investment at the end of the recovery. So I would like to go, we are almost finalizing this great session, but I want to go with Maurizio, not just with a question, but in fact, I want to ask our panelists, and starting with you, Maurizio, if you should have a final message for all the people who is watching this session, what will do?
Very quickly, energy transition is ongoing. Instruction for the use, electrification, decentralization, and digitalization. And then location, decarbonized and urbanized Latin America.
Fantastic, great message. I would like to encourage also all of our panelists to send a message to all the people who has joined us. So let's go with Claudio, please, if you can spread your message. You are with me.
Sorry about that. A sustainable recovery must align the actions that promote the, of course, urgent creation of jobs and investment because of the pandemic, with those the environmental and climate strategy needs we have as the largest crisis humanity faces towards carbon neutrality, climate resilience, to tackle urban pollution and reduce energy poverty.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And we'll finalize with our fantastic Guadalupe. Please, can you share our message for join all the people who joined this session?
Thanks. Well, I'll go a little bit more millennial. I will say that we need to surf the energy transition wave or we are going to be rolled over. This is coming. This is something that we cannot stop. It's just a matter of times. This is a process. We have to be sure about that, but this is the only way to go. If we need to save the planet, this is the only way to go. It's an economic saving, climate change is going to be saved. So this is the only way to move forward.
Thank you very much, Guadalupe. Great message. I would like to leave, I think that I am going to copy and say that more millennial message as well at the end from my point of view. And I think that energy transition and all what we are facing in terms of COVID-19 and what is going to go post-COVID-19 is that energy transition must be a contribution beside also private sector as well in public. We need to go with civil society and create that consensus because otherwise it's going to be very, very challenging after. So, well, I want to say thank you our panelists for their incredible participation and also to join us today. We know that you are very busy and thank you for giving us your time. The session is almost done. And also I want to say thank you to the World Energy Council to give us this opportunity to spread all our knowledge and of course the incredible knowledge of our panelists. And also before to end the session, I want to invite all of you to respond the following survey because your feedback is very important to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alejandra. Bye, Guadalupe. Ciao, Maurizio.
Ciao, Claudio. Ciao, Guadalupe. Ciao, Alejandra.
Again, before I get into some of the reflections in terms of some of the excellent content that we heard over the course of the last hour, we do have a poll for our Latin America session. In Latin America, what's the most important energy solution to emphasize to the public in order to get them engaged in a post-COVID-19 sustainable recovery plan? And boom, up we have the results here. So overwhelmingly for energy efficiency and improved consumer habits, and then followed by distributed energy resources. I have to say I'm a little bit surprised on nothing coming through on new and innovative technology because I think we heard a lot about that over the course of the last hour. My own reflections on that was I think it was interesting obviously to get the very kind of direct impression with regard to what's happened to the economies in the last number of months and obviously the economic consequences of that. So to a certain extent, again, kind of linking back to our resilience discussion that we had just prior to that, I was assuming there'd be an agenda of survivability, and so therefore for me it was actually a very pleasant surprise that I felt that the kind of focus of the three presentations that we got was I just wrote it down, an opportunity to embrace change. I felt that what we heard from the different presenters was that actually the scale of the change is well understood. The scale of the change has been modeled, so to speak, in terms of what needs to happen between now and 2050. There was an acceptance of the link between energy policy and industrial policy and societal policy to link those together because it was evident that the agenda of innovation, the agenda of technology, the agenda of digital would actually bring economic benefit to the countries involved. It would bring new opportunities for job creation. It would bring opportunity in terms of new businesses and new ways for the private sector to get very engaged with the development of energy in the Latin American markets that were talked about today. So in that sense, I think it brought forward a number of the innovation agendas that we have talked about over the course of the day. And it was great to actually see very real plans that have been put in place in those countries for driving those agendas forward. We heard about hydrogen and the possibilities that that can bring. We heard about the electrification of public transport in Chile and the importance of that. We heard about the recognition that there will be difficulties in driving the agenda forward in the context of changing the household stock and making that much more efficient in terms of the materials used, et cetera, but again, that had been thought through. So again, I saw this as an opportunity to embrace change. I felt that there were abundant opportunities, there was a link to a sustainable agenda, and also I felt that there was a call for investment in very viable businesses as they were described over the course of the last hour. Just another kind of a little note to self, I felt there was also the cue for a platform for redesign 2020, which was, again, I believe, a website that one of the presenters highlighted, which was bringing together new ideas around the way in which the energy system could transition so that we could share those ideas from different countries. I thought that was a fantastic idea. I hadn't seen it, and it certainly be something that I'll be looking at over the course of the next couple of days. So once again, thank you everyone for the last hour. It was good to bring a regional agenda and bring that alive for us in terms of those opportunities that were set out.